Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. It is my great honor and pleasure to present to you for the first time today the review of the year at Sanoma. And I will be doing that together with the CEO for our media business, Pia Kalsta, and also Alejandro Castex, who is our managing director for our Spanish learning business, where we saw, of course, a lot of our growth last year. And together, it's our aim to bring to life to you a bit more what's behind the numbers, what are the key achievements, key successes that have happened across Sanoma throughout the year. But before I go there, I would like to take an opportunity to say a huge thank you to my predecessor, Suzanne Duinhoven. As you are all aware, Suzanne led a phenomenal transformation of our organization over the past 8 years. And it's really thanks to her and her leadership that we have now this clear organization with two parts to it, learning and media, and also a very clear strategy that we are as a team very happy to now continue to execute on. So on behalf of the whole team, Suzanne, thank you very much. Bedankt. Let's then now zoom in on what does actually mean the two organizations that we have, parts of the organization. So on the one hand, we have this leading position in what we call K-12 learning across Europe. And K-12 really means primary, secondary, vocational. So really the core of the educational years for every child. At the same time, we also have that #1 media position here in Finland. And let me bring that to life a bit more with two key statistics. One is probably one that you are all very much aware of, which is that we reach as Sanoma about 97% of the Finns every week. And a lot of that is actually happening in this beautiful building here. So it's around the TV, it's around the radio, of course, the newspaper and the high-quality journalism. All those aspects play a key role in that, to really try to reach and have an impact on millions of Finns every week. What you might be slightly less familiar with is what that looks like in the education side of the business. And if you think of it in a way that if you were to step into a classroom, whether it's primary or secondary, across Europe in the countries we're active, it's a very high chance you will see a teacher there and students who actually work and learn with materials that have been developed by Sanoma. And that's of course the book and workbooks, but that's also videos, online learning, personalized learning, so a wide variety of what we call blended learning. And we do that towards approximately 25 million students and their teachers every day across Europe. So that gives a bit of a feel for the kind of impact we try to have on the lives of people every day. Let's now look what that means then in financial terms over 2023. And that's what you see here. So just a couple of key points. On the left-hand side, you see that transformation is also reflected in our revenue. 57% of the revenue last year came from that learning business that I just mentioned. 43% from media. On the profitability side, that transformation has gone even further to almost 80% of the profit last year coming from the learning side. And if you zoom a bit in on what has been driving that, then there has been strong net sales growth last year. Organically, if you look at the 6%, but also the full year impact of our latest acquisition in Italy, in particular, had that impact as well. And that was offset with a much tougher situation here in Finland on the media side. So that together led to that organic growth of 2% last year. On the operational EBIT, the trends continued that we saw before, which is on the learning side, strong growth. At the same time, the decline in advertising sales did have a real impact on the profitability there. And also the cost inflation in both businesses were having that impact. On the free cash flow, I'll touch on it later a bit more, slightly more complicated story because in 22 we acquired the Italian business, so there's quite a lot of one-off effects, but underlying there has been a strong improvement on the cash flow, particularly if you look at that strong growth again and also active working capital management across learning. All that resulted in the leverage being at 2.8, which is below our target level of 3.0. And we also last year introduced the program Solar, which really underpins our efforts to get to 23% profitability across learning by 2026. And that program is very much on track, and I'll touch on a couple of specific elements in a minute as well. And already mentioned, this all results in also the proposal from the board for the 37 cents dividend, flat compared to last year. Let me now zoom in a bit more on both sides of the business, starting with the learning side. If you look underneath it, then a lot of the growth organically came from our Spanish market, but also continued good growth in Poland and in the Netherlands. Especially on Spain, we'll give you more examples in a minute, because that was a massive curriculum change that we saw there, which led to 18% growth. That were also the key drivers, together with the Italian acquisition, for the growth in revenue and profitability. And later on, we'll show to you that that doesn't come by itself. So there's a lot of new materials, new methods, over 800 across Europe, that we have launched and introduced to make that happen. And we track on a yearly basis towards the teachers how they appreciate those material. And there you see here as well that 84% really say it has a very important impact in making sure that the children can reach their curriculum objectives, i.e. the next step in their education. We now have a scale at Sanoma Learning that also warrants to look at how can we do things differently, better, and really making use of that scale. And that's in essence what we have called Program Solar. So Program Solar is really saying we now have a scale that's quite unique in K-12 education. Let's make it work on all the different aspects that you see here. So yes, there is organizational optimization. Very logical if you think about markets like Spain, where we see really big new curriculum, and then after that it's also logical to reduce the investments you do there. And we do similar things in other markets as well. But more importantly, it is making that scale work. Publishing processes. You can do things with that scale more jointly, getting the books ready, printing, etc., but also a lot more around the topic of getting the content from the manuscript really towards the students. The same applies to digital platforms. With the acquisitions we have done, we've also acquired a lot of different digital solutions. And what we are doing at the moment with the teams is really making sure that we bring that back to harmonized solutions, which really means you develop things once and you also develop it in countries where the costs are lower to do that. In our case, particularly Spain and Poland. And then there's a lot of other optimizations happening as well, again using that scale, particularly around HR, finance, and other supporting roles. So all that together leads really to that big program of 55 million, which will contribute very significantly to reaching that 23% profitability. So that's from a financial point on learning. Let's now go to the other side of the story, which is on the Media Finland side. There, and I think you all experienced that here in Finland as well, it has been a much more challenging operating environment. And that, in our case, does show in advertising sales declining, mostly in newsprint and TV. A couple of trends that we've seen for years do continue, which is around our subscriptions, and particularly digital subscriptions increasing, but also the digital advertising sales continuing to grow. And later on, when I look a little bit ahead, you will also see that that is expected to be the case going forward. But it has had a very significant impact on the profitability in this part of the business. That lower advertising sales and also the inflation impact that we saw here in Finland. And a big compliment to the team at the same time for doing a lot of active cost management to limit the impact of all this as much as possible, which also puts us in a good position that if things do improve on the economy side, we will see that flow through more positively to the bottom line. So that's on the media side, and Pia will give specific examples later on as well. If you bring that all together and you then look at our balance sheet, get back to two key points. On the one hand, we see that 2.8 leverage now below our 3.0 target, and we also saw our equity ratio improving to the 42.5%. The flip side of that is as well that when you look at the net financial items, clearly we're also affected by the increasing interest rates, which you see mentioned here, amounting to 31 million cost compared to 13 back in 22. And one event after the year end was around the bond, which we repaid in March 2024. A couple of comments on the cash flow. What you saw there is that active working capital management in learning, but also lower taxes and lower capital expenditure, all having a positive impact compared to the higher financing cost and the lower earnings in Media Finland, and then that one-off impact due to the acquisition of the Italian business. All these results together result in what was already mentioned around the dividend, which is very much the same structure as what was proposed last year as well, and also with the same amount of 37 cents per share. That's on the core financials. I would like to then zoom in on a couple other topics before I hand over to Alejandro and Pia. And the first one is around a key part of sustainability, and that is the core elements of where do we now as a company, which is a very natural company to focus on sustainability, where can we really make the difference? And there's a lot of elements, but I would like to focus on two in particular, the first two. The first one is around people, because ultimately with the strategy we have, it's all very important, but it's the people that ultimately make the difference here. And the second one, a theme that was already touched on earlier, is around AI, and particularly generative AI. How do we look at that as a company? Starting with the people. I think one of the things I am very impressed with here at Sanoma, and I've seen that of course already on the learning side, but I also very much see it on the media side, is we are successful because of the passionate, diverse and dedicated people we have. Whether you look on the learning or on the journalistic side, TV side, that's really a core element of our success. And it's also reflected in what is called the Employee Experience Index, which is significantly above the European benchmark. And we constantly think about how we can further improve that, knowing that the war for talent, making sure that you get the right people on board, will determine a lot of the success also going forward. So that's on the people side. Then a topic that you probably heard a lot about is AI, and particularly generative AI. It's fair to say that in a lot of cases that is still early days on trying things out, but there are a couple of things that in our business are very important. First of all, we do see a lot of opportunities for this to help us, support us in a new way of working. And overarching is we have a lot of editorial processes, editorial content that we produce both in learning as well as in media. And we really see opportunities here with AI to become there more efficient. But always with a very clear focus on the high quality and on the media side, making sure we do not compromise the high quality and trusted journalism. So that's very much front of mind. And on the learning side, of course, that it really supports the children in the right kind of way, but also making sure that you really focus on the child there and not just do AI for the sake of it. Just to give you a couple of specific examples. On the media side, you see that reflected in news summaries, in supporting the journalists becoming more efficient in their day-to-day work. But it's also on other things like predictive analytics that we can use there, and also more the advertising being more targeted. So specific elements there, and I'm sure this list will only grow over the years to come. On the learning side, we do several things. We focus on partnerships, for example, with a company like Microsoft on the immersive reader, so really trying to help young children improve their reading skills with the use of AI. But the core opportunity longer term, and I stress longer term, is around personalized learning. So really trying to help the teachers that are there in Europe, help them to be as efficient as possible so they can really focus on the individual needs of the student. So that's very much something we see happening going forward. So let me now bring it a bit more to life to you with a short video on, first of all, the learning side. When we talk about those 800 new methods and products, what does that really look like across Europe? So let's have a quick look. So just a quick sort of preview of what that actually means in the different countries with the different materials and blended solutions. As I mentioned at the start, a core part of our growth last year was actually in Spain with the new curriculum. And I would now like to invite Alejandro Castex, our Managing Director for Spain, to the stage to give you a bit more context to that. Alejandro.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rob. I'm very happy to be here and to have this opportunity to share a little bit with you about what is it that we do in Spain in the learning market. As Rob was saying, I joined the company in January of last year. I am very passionate about education, and I'm very proud to be part of a company that really improves lives through learning. So over the next few minutes, what I'm going to be doing is basically share a little bit of what makes us the leading educational company in Spain. You will see that it has to do with a very passionate team, a very talented team. It is about developing the best learning methods and also a lot of very strong sense of commitment to our teachers and students. But let's first start by setting the scene and looking into some of the key facts of the Spanish market. Spain is one of the largest educational markets in Europe. So just to put things into perspective, in Spain we have around 6.5 million students, and these students are attended by almost 500,000 teachers. The market has been proven to be resilient over the years, and it's true that one of the key characteristics of the market is how regional and diverse it is in terms of its regions and the languages. So Spain is basically a nation that is organized through 17 different autonomous communities or regions. The educational curriculums are defined at each of those 17 autonomous communities, which in essence means that we do serve 17 different educational curriculums. In addition to that, we also publish our materials in 5 different languages, which are official languages in Spain. In this context, Santillanan is the most recognized educational publisher in the market. We do have a leading position in Spain across the board, but most importantly in the primary education sector, which is by size and number of students, the most important one in Spain. The market is increasingly adopting blended methods. When we say blended methods, we are talking about a combination of print and digital resources. But it's also true that, in essence, what's really happening in the classroom is really still a pretty much print-based market. Okay? And this, once again, is especially true for the primary education sector. So we're going to be moving into the next slide to really look and take a deeper look into what an actual method looks like, and exactly so that I can show you what makes us really unique. World Makers, which you can find on the center of this slide, is one of our best-selling methods and has been one of the biggest successes we had in this new educational reform that Rob was talking about. So in recent years, so basically 2022 and 2023, we had a very big curriculum change that led to this growth that Rob was talking about. World Makers is a competency-based learning method in which we prepare different solutions both for teachers and students. You might be more familiar with the contents that we develop for students, which are essentially textbooks, both print and digital, but also the workbooks. But this also comes together with a very strong set of resources for the teacher. And this, in essence, what we're looking to do is that the key idea is that our methods include carefully edited materials, both print and digital, both for the student and for the teacher. So a full blended method is what you see on this screen and what makes us the leading publisher in Spain. I was referencing before how diverse our market is, given the 17 regions and the 5 official languages. So to put that into perspective and actual practice, what you can see is that just in 2023, to respond to that educational reform, we published over 500 new digital and print books and prepared over 1,000 additional resources for teachers. But in order to bring these methods even more to life, I would like to now introduce you to a very short video that illustrates how World Maker was developed and how it is used in the classroom.
World Makers is a new series for primary and secondary education to comply with the new Spanish education law.
With World Makers, we have developed a spectacular project that offers an active learning method focused on building skills for lifelong learning.
Here in Spain, printed books are still the main support for teachers. But audiovisual and interactive digital resources are increasingly used in class to bring contents to life, to connect students to real-world situations and to create opportunities to collaborate and work together.
Libromedias are a blended learning solution, an enhanced version of our printed books with a wide array of digital resources.
In Libromedias, activities, interactive resources, 3D objects, audios, games and videos are linked to the actual content of the printed book. All the digital empowerment is connected to the day-to-day experience in the classroom.
After more than 10 years of evolution, Libromedias are a tried and tested solution.
Both teachers and students love them.
And we're sure you'll love them too.
With our learning methods, we do help shape the future of education. We in Spain, we feel deep passion for what we do and have a very strong long-term commitment with our teachers and our students. We have a sense of responsibility towards those 6.5 million students and almost 500,000 teachers in the Spanish market. And so that's why we will continue to work to develop the best learning methods and to continue to drive innovation, which improves the quality of education and that really allows our students to reach their full potential. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I hope you enjoyed this very brief insight into the Spanish market. Rob, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So hopefully that gave a bit of a feel for what it means when we talk about big curriculum changes in a country, and that happens, of course, across Europe, but this was a very important one for us last year. Let's now make the move to Media Finland, where, of course, you on a daily basis experience some of the developments that we do as a company in all these different areas that I mentioned earlier. And I would like to now invite Pia Kalsta, our CEO for the media side, to the stage to also give us a feel for that and some practical examples. Pia.
Thank you, Rob. Tervehdys ja hyvää iltapäivää. Käännetään katseet siis Suomeen ja mediaan. Mä tulen jakamaan muutaman käytännön esimerkin siitä, että mitä digitaalinen transformaatio Sanomalle medialiiketoiminnassa tarkoittaa. Mutta aloitetaan ensin katsomalla video siitä, että mitä Suomessa ja mediassa on tapahtunut sitten viime yhtiökokouksen. Videolla näitte sen, mistä Sanoma Media Finland on teille ja suomalaisille tuttu. Sisällöistä ja tunnetuista mediabrändeistä. Meillä on laaja, monipuolinen brändiportfolio, jossa on toisiaan täydentäviä medioita, joka on hyvin monipuolinen. Ja lähdetään tästä liikkeelle. 2/3 meidän liikevaihdosta koostuu journalistisista medioista. Siellä kaikille tutut valtakunnalliset uutisbrändit, kuten Helsingin Sanomat, Ilta-Sanomat, alueellisista uutismedioista. Sitten me ollaan Pirkanmaan ja Satakunnan alueella läsnä, ja sitten meillä on laaja portfolio aikakauslehtiä. Ja mikä on tärkeää on se, että meillä jokaisella journalistisella medialla on oma vastaava päätoimittaja. Ja tämä vastaava päätoimittaja vastaa itsenäisesti kunkin brändin sisällöstä, huolimatta siitä, että näillä journalistisilla brändeillä on sama omistaja. Viihteen osuus meidän liiketoiminnasta on 1/3, ja se koostuu TV:stä, radiosta, digitaalisista palveluista, kuten Ruutu Plus ja Supla, sekä tapahtumista. Ja tämän portfolion kautta me tavoitetaan viikossa, kuten Rob tuossa sanoi, lähes kaikki suomalaiset. Ja tässä maassa, jossa on 2,8 miljoonaa kotitaloutta, niin Sanoman tuotteita tilaa jo 1,4 miljoonaa taloutta, ja 900 000 näistä maksaa digitaalisista sisällöistä. Miltä tämä sitten näyttää liiketoiminnan näkökulmasta? Isossa kuvassahan median kaupallinen malli koostuu 2 tulovirrasta, eli kuluttajarahoitteisesta ja mainosrahoitteisesta. Ja maailmalla, niin kuin meilläkin, kuluttajarahoitteisuuden osuus liiketoiminnasta kasvaa ja sitten mainosrahoitteisen osuus vähitellen laskee. Ja meidän liikevaihdosta hieman alle puolet tulee mainosmyynnistä ja yhä suurempi osa siitä on digitaalista. Meillä on hyvin vahva asema Suomen mainosmarkkinoilla johtuen meidän vahvasta tavoittavuudesta, mutta myöskin siitä jatkuvasti parantuvasta kyvystä kohdentaa mainontaa relevantisti. Mainosmarkkina on kuitenkin suhdanneherkkää, niin hyvässä kuin pahassa. Ja viime vuonna yhtiön kannattavuus jäi selkeästi aikaisemmista vuosista johtuen hyvin heikosta mainosmarkkinan kehityksestä. Mutta sitten toisaalta uskomme, että kun mainosmarkkina tästä kääntyy, niin sillä on sitten vastaava positiivinen vaikutus meidän tulokseen. Kuluttajarahoitteisen liiketoiminnan osuus kasvaa. Ja sitä kasvattaa erityisesti digitaalisten tilausten kasvu. Ja seuraavat esimerkit tulevat kertomaan juuri tästä digitaalisesta kasvusta, joka on meille hyvin tärkeää. Aloitetaan tällä kertaa viihteestä. Ruutu Plus-tilaukset ovat merkittävä osa meidän digitaalista tilauskantaa. Ja tällä hetkellä meillä on yli 370 000 Ruutu Plus-tilausta. Ja Ruutu Plus-liikevaihto on ennätystasolla. TV:n katseluhan on muutoksessa, on ollut jo pitkään. Lineaarinen katselu siirtyy TV:n tilauspalveluihin. Kansainväliset toimijat kasvattaa maksullista TV-markkinaa Suomessa, joka perinteisesti on ollut aika pieni. Ja sitten me nähdään yleisesti trendi, josta me myös hyödymme, on, että myös suomalaiset ovat valmiita maksamaan TV-sisällöistä. No miten sitten Ruutu pärjää tässä kovassa kilpailussa? Se perustuu vahvasti kotimaiseen paikalliseen sisältöön, viihteeseen, urheiluun ja nyt myös kasvavassa määrin draamaan meidän Elisa-yhteistyön kautta. Ja nyt kun ruututilaajilla on entistä enemmän sisältöä katsottavanaan, näemme myöskin, että he ovat sitoutuneempia palveluun kuin aikaisemmin. TV:ssä digitaalisuus on siis tarkoittanut sitä, että yhä useampi maksaa TV-palveluista. Sitten kun katsotaan iltapäivälehtiä, niin digitaalisuus onkin tuonut yhä kasvavamman tavoittavuuden ja käytön. Ja siirrytään siis Ilta-Sanomiin. Ilta-Sanomat on Suomen suurin digitaalinen uutismedia. Viikossa Ilta-Sanomat tavoittaa yli puolet kaikista suomalaisista. Joka päivä Ilta-Sanomilla on lähes 7 miljoonaa käyntiä. Nämä on aivan valtavia lukuja. Ja ne todella ovat sitä, koska nämä ovat populaatioon suhteutettuna maailman ennätyslukuja. Ja Ilta-Sanomat on harkittu yhdistelmä uutisia, viihdettä ja puheenaiheita. Ja mikä on tärkeää on se, että Ilta-Sanomien kautta myös ihmiset, jotka eivät aktiivisesti hae uutisia, törmäävät sellaisiin ja lukevat uutisia. Ja näin Ilta-Sanomilla on myöskin merkittävä yhteiskunnallinen arvo Suomessa. Digitaalinen Ilta-Sanomat on digitaalinen Ilta-Sanomat on mainosrahoitteinen eli kuluttajille ilmainen. Ja nyt tähän rinnalle me olemme sitten tänä keväänä lanseeranneet uuden tuotteen IS Extran, joka on tilaustuote ja se on näyttää siis kiinnostavan erittäin paljon lukijoita, lähtenyt hyvin liikkeelle ja ollaan paljon edellä meidän tälle vuodelle asetettuja tavoitteita. Ja tulette myös tämän tilaisuuden jälkeen saamaan IS Extra-koodin, niin pääsette sitten tutustumaan tähän tuotteeseen. Katsotaan sitten eteenpäin ja siirrytään Helsingin Sanomiin. Sanomien vastaava päätoimittaja Erja Yläjärvi aloitti viime syksynä työssään. Ja katsotaan, mitä Erja kertoo Helsingin Sanomien tulevaisuudesta ja painopisteistä.
Mä oon Erja Yläjärvi ja mä oon Helsingin Sanomien vastaava päätoimittaja. Oon ollut näissä hommissa nyt viime syyskuusta alkaen. Aiemmin on ollut vastaavana päätoimittajana Hufvudstadsbladetissa ja Iltalehdessä ja olen tehnyt näitä uutisjournalistin hommia jo pitkälti yli 20 vuotta, aikoinaan ennen kaikkea politiikan ja ulkomaan toimittamisen parissa. Helsingin Sanomissa kaikkein tärkeintä on olla relevantti ja kiinnostava meidän tilaajille joka päivä. Ja vaikka me halutaan tietysti yleisesti olla yhteiskunnallisesti merkittävä ja laadukas, niin tärkeintä on olla laadukas ja läheisen tuntunen sille nimenomaan meidän tilaajalle. Ja jos sitä tunnetta ei pysty synnyttämään, niin ei pysty synnyttämään sitä laajempaa merkitystäkään. Mutta kyllä meidän täytyy koko ajan miettiä sitä, että millä tavalla yleisön saa mukaan. Ja kyllä korostuu sellaiset kerronnan keinot kuin kuunneltu sisältö, kuunneltu journalismi, video kerronnan keinona. Ja keskitytään sellaisiin niin kuin perinteisiin aihepiireihin, joita meidän tilaajat arvostaa. Niitä on politiikasta, kulttuuriin ja pääkaupunkiseudun uutisista hyvinvointiin. Digitaalisessa ajassa mä ajattelen, että se nimenomaan ihmisten ja journalistien itse paikan päällä tekemä työ ja faktantarkastus korostuu entisestään. Lähivuosina tekoälyn tuottamaa sisältöä tulee joka kanavasta ja se ikään kuin näyttää journalismilta, mutta se ei voi korvata sitä työtä, mitä me voidaan tuolla kentällä tehdä pääkaupunkiseudulla, Suomessa, ulkomailla ja ihan sellaisia niin kuin perushyveitä.
Kiitos Erja. Eli Helsingin Sanomissa fokus on vahvasti lukijoissa ja kerronnan keinoissa ja siinä, miten me ollaan vahvasti läsnä lukijoiden ja suomalaisten arjessa. Tähän loppuun vielä muutama sana Sanoma Media Finlandin tulevaisuuden suunnitelmista. Me tehdään pitkäjänteisesti ja johdonmukaisesti työtä sen eteen, että me ollaan kiinnostavia, relevantteja, tavoittavia niin journalismissa kuin viihteessä myös jatkossa. Sisältön kulutuksen digitalisoituessa meidänkin fokus on vahvasti digitaalisessa kehityksessä ja digitaalisen liikevaihdon kasvattamisessa. Tavoitteenamme on myös parantaa kannattavuuttamme ja saavuttaa pitkän aikavälin kannattavuustavoite 12–14%. Ja se edellyttää meiltä onnistumista digitaalisessa kasvussa, tuottavuuden parantamista ja myöskin yleisen markkinatilanteen parantumista. Me sanomalaiset ollaan hyvin sitoutuneita tähän työhön ja näihin tavoitteisiin. Meitä motivoi se, että me pystytään vaikuttamaan positiivisesti suomalaiseen yhteiskuntaan ja ihmisten elämään. Me tarjoamme ihmisille joka päivä tietoa, näkökulmia ja pidämme heidät ajan tasalla. Me kokoamme ihmiset myös yhteen TV:n ääreen, me kokoamme ihmisiä yhteen tilaisuuksiin, me tarjoamme iloa ja viihdettä. Kiitos. And I will now hand back to Rob.
Thank you very much, Pia. And that concludes the sort of looking back across both parts of the business, and hopefully that brought to life a bit everything that is behind the numbers that you saw me presenting earlier. Before we open it up for questions, let me say a few words about looking forward, so 24 and also a bit further ahead. Of course, we published our outlook for the year back in February, and I'd just like to highlight a couple of the key elements there. If you look at the learning part of the business, then you see that after the fantastic results we saw in Spain, it is also logical that the cycle there goes down a bit, which will impact our net sales somewhat. But that will be mostly mitigated with the other learning businesses continuing to grow, as I highlighted before, particularly also in countries like the Netherlands and Poland. At the same time, we are discontinuing some of our low-value distribution contracts to make that part of the business also more robust going forward and longer term. In learning, we also continue with the implementation of price increases that are slightly above average, and that's very much the reflection of the fact that when initially the high inflation hit, we were not able immediately to translate that in our prices, but we did very successfully last year, and we are also continuing with that in 2024. And also good to realize that we did divest a small part of our business in Germany, exam preparation. All that results in a slightly lower reported net sales expectation, but relatively stable margins. And of course, underneath that, a lot happening with regard to our solar program to get towards that profitability in 2026 of 23%. If you look at the media side of our business, there the trends that also Pia highlighted will very much continue, which also means that our subscription sales, we expect that they will continue to grow, be really the growth driver also going forward, particularly on the digital side. And overall, we're expecting the net sales to be more comparable. And that is a reflection of the fact that we also expect the Finnish economy to be more or less stable as well. And also here, good to realize that we did do a divestment of NetWheels early in 2024, which has an impact on the top line. Overall, resulting in that modest earnings and margin improvement that we expect, also very much reflecting all the efforts that have been done to lower the cost base in a very successful way. That results in these numbers, which is around the 1.29 to 1.34 billion on the revenue side overall, and 160 to 180 million with regard to EBIT, really underpinning more or less stable markets in all our operating companies. Finally, I would like to just look ahead a little bit further, and we do very much, as I said at the start, continue with that ambitious growth strategy we have, focused on profitable growth, and really aiming to continue to grow very significantly and doubling the size of learning between now and 2030. That also means that M&A will continue to be an important factor there. In the short term, more on those in-market consolidations, for example, in countries like Spain or Italy, if opportunities were to arise, but also longer term, of course, in other geographies as well, focused on K-12. Program Solar will really continue to be implemented and have that impact over the years to come, like I mentioned earlier. And on Media Finland, I think what Pia presented can really be characterized as a real big digital transformation. And that will continue over the years to come, very much focused towards that subscription growth over time. With all that said, the dividend, as was highlighted earlier, remains a very important part of our investment story, with that 40 to 60% of the free cash flow going there. So with that, I hope we brought you both the numbers as well as a bit of the story underneath it, what is happening every day to make that happen.